Hey there, it's Chris. Welcome back to the Spartan Ultra Training program that I have going on here. And if you're whether you're new to this series or whether you've been kind of following through every episode of the way here, you've probably noticed that I've been kind of deviating quite a bit from where I initially planned on this series going. When I had first started, I kind of planned on this kind of following along my training program from when I start, usually right after Thanksgiving, to kind of week by week how things progress all the way until race day, usually the end of April for the Vernon Ultra coming up. And you've probably noticed the last few sessions I've been kind of deviating away from that, in that we've had a couple little specific episodes where it's more focused on certain individual aspects of the training, whether it's like doing the lunges, whether it's dealing with cold weather running, or last week's, which is like the by the numbers, which if you're at all nervous about going into an ultra, you've never done one of these before, or if you have and you're still like super nervous about kind of delving into the unknown, I would highly recommend watching last week's video, that by the numbers one, because that will kind of put things a little more in perspective on what we're doing, both as how the course is laid out, and then in the second half of the video of how we can go about making our race day plan to go through said course. And it lays out number by number how this actually works. And it's really not that scary a perspective or prospect as you might think it is. But that said, I want to come back in. The weather is getting nicer outside now. We're actually above freezing. It's been months since we've been above freezing. The snow is now starting to melt. I can start to see some grass on the ground. A lot of mud, but a little bit of grass too. And I'm hoping the next couple weeks, there are a couple kind of demonstration type things I want to do outside for these videos I want to get in. So before we delve into those, I just want to come back to what my initial plan for this series was and just kind of go over where we are in our training at the moment. So as you may have known, we're doing a lot of kind of easier zone 2 stuff. It's taking up approximately like somewhere between 80 to 90% of our running base is the zone 2 training, which is again keeping your heart rate about 70% of what your heart rate range is. Go back to session 3 if you don't know what zone 2 is. Actually, sessions 3 and 4 if you want to rewatch the zone 2 recap on that. But our runs are largely in that category, and we're constantly pushing out our distance every other week. We're doing a distance run that is 2 weeks, that is 2 miles longer than the previous long distance run from 2 weeks ago. So last week I did the 12-mile run. This coming weekend coming up is going to be the 14-mile run. 2 weeks after that's going to be the 16, and so on and so forth, with the long run or equivalent being approximately 20 miles. That's going to wind up being 3 miles before the race. And then we change things up a little bit for those last 3 miles to kind of then get prepped for the race itself. But on the running front, that's kind of where we are. My initial goal was to have 5 days a week of running, with 3 of those runs being the quote-unquote real ones. These are going to be a little more beefy. And then there would be 2 recovery runs kind of after, which would be like maybe little 3-mile or 3.5-mile kind of things, just kind of stay loose between workouts. But we didn't want to have any kind of consecutive heavy runs in a row. We're not in high school anymore. Our bodies need time to recover between. So at this point in the game, this past week, my weekday runs, where it wound up being around 10K, a little over 6 miles apiece. And this weekend one, which I'm actually going to do right after this video goes out and is going live, I'm probably going to be doing my 10-mile run for this week. And then next week is going to be probably about the same, only it's going to wind up being a 14-miler at the end. Where at the same time, distance-wise, just as I'm pushing out 2 extra miles every other week, I'm also running about 3 extra miles every other week. So next week, or rather last week I should say, was around 28 miles, or 28 to 29. And next week should be around that 31-mile range. And again, as if you watched the very first episode I had this whole thing, my whole game plan was to wind up at around a 40 miles worth of distance on my longest week of the year. That's going to put that week where I have my 20-mile distance run is also going to be the week where we hit that 40 miles. So if we keep this pace up, we're going to hit both those goals at once. So that's where we are in distance-wise. In terms of the zone 2 stuff, where I'm saying 80% or 80 to 90% is the zone 2, and the rest is generally around that zone 4. I'm personally tending to put that extra zone 4 stuff and lump that into my distance runs. I have issues with my shoulder from a biking accident before that kind of prohibits me from running super long times before my arm starts going numb and whatnot. Then it kind of screws up my blood flow. So I tend to push now my speedier workouts towards those just because it helps me get farther runs in before my body starts to break down. You may put those in during your weekday runs and have like intervals and stuff during them. Again, I'm not super concerned on specific workouts that are done, more just creating the framework around which these workouts can be done. And you can try individual things on your own and see what works for you, what doesn't work for you to meet whatever goals you may have, whether it be with this race or other races or other events you have along the way, either before or after the ultra that comes in. On the on the other end of things, I have started doing the lunges at the end of workouts. I know I put the video out 2 videos ago. I finally started doing the lunges this week. I wanted to wait until after that 12 miler was in before I started doing that. Because I know whenever you start adding a new workout into something, the new muscles that are getting used, they hate you for it. Absolutely. So this previous Monday, I finally started doing the lunges. I did that. I did a 10K run, and at the end, I wound up doing 120 lunges after that before I kind of backed off and realized I haven't done this in a while. My legs aren't going to like me, and surprise, surprise, all day at work for like the next 2 or 3 days, my legs really didn't like bending down, getting back up, getting material off the ground or whatever. It was kind of a mess. But this past Friday, went out, did it again, did 160 lunges, and it wound up being a whole lot better. I'm feeling a lot better now afterwards. So legs are getting, it took a couple times, but again, I had done this in the past before, so getting back to where I was is a lot easier than just starting fresh and going into it. So if you've never done it before, this might take a number of tries before your legs finally start getting used to getting into this again. But the goal is to get to about a quarter mile, which for me winds up being about 400 lunges. So I'm getting there. We have a little ways to go, but I'm about 40% of the way there. So we're getting there. It's all good. We're gonna hit that. Otherwise, outside of that, we're still doing our once or twice a week, depending how confident or not confident you are in your upper body stuff. It's gonna be once or twice a week on just the push-ups, pull-ups, dead hangs, and farmer's carries. I'm always going to push those 4 as like the main 4 that you want to be good at if you're going to be doing any of these types of races. And at the same time, on the leg side of thing, it's still the once or twice a week of runner-based strength training, things that target your calves, your quads, your hamstrings, your glutes, stuff like that. Again, you can go to other videos and other sources to find out specific workouts to do for each of those things. Because again, my goal of this entire series is to make a framework to work around. You can go to other places then to find out specifics that may work for you to kind of fit into a framework. But I find it's a lot more important to have a framework in mind and then just experiment throughout you go through to see what works, what doesn't, what you like, what your body doesn't like, what hurts, what doesn't hurt, and then kind of build your own program specifically kind of from there. But as long as you have the framework you can plug these types of things into, that's really all we're kind of going for right now. Which, again, the reason I'm only saying once or twice a week on a number of these things is that's now 3 areas we're doing once or twice a week: the lunges, the upper body, and the lower body. So if you're doing all of that, let's say you're doing all 6 workouts of that per week, plus you're doing, say, 4 or 5 runs per week, you're already looking at 10 to 11 different workouts you're doing for this ultra, and that's overkill. So that's why I'm saying once or twice, find out the things you feel like you're weak on, maybe do those twice. Things you feel like you're stronger on, you can always kind of scale back, and you don't need to worry about those quite as much. And again, if you want to know why you may or may not need to worry about certain things, go back to the previous By the Numbers episode. That will explain exactly why you may or may not need to worry about certain things as much going into this. But that's kind of where we are right now. It's great that it's finally getting lighter outside. So I don't need the headlamp quite as much when I go for runs after work. You might be going before work, and you are heck still needing a headlamp for that. But that part's good. And like I said, it's getting nicer outside. It's getting warmer. I'm still bundled up because once the sun goes down, it's still kind of just about in that frigid range. But we're starting to get out of that frigid and just into normal kind of winter cold, which is nice. But like I said, next week, hopefully it looks like things are melting. I'm crossing my fingers because I have a couple more fun videos I want to get into on that are going to help with kind of either the hills, trails, obstacles. I have a number of things I want to kind of cover in the coming weeks when weather gets nice. So I just wanted to get this one out today. It's a real super easy, super quick, no frills kind of thing. This is where we are, and this is what we're doing. And in the next couple times, hopefully, we're going to get to some more fun stuff, some more kind of ultra specific things. But yeah, that's all I really had for this one, just keeping it simple. And I'll see you next time. Enjoy.